The porch light was flickering again that night. It had been doing that for weeks, but I kept forgetting to change the bulb. Maybe because part of me liked the way it blinked on and off, like it was unsure whether it should stay awake or finally rest. I was standing in my kitchen, rinsing a single cup in the sink, when I heard the knock. Not loud, not rushed, just 3 slow taps spaced carefully apart. I froze, because some knocks don't sound like visitors. They sound like consequences. As I walked toward the door, I noticed my hands were shaking, even though I didn't yet know why. And when I opened it, the man standing on my porch was crying. It took my mind a few seconds to catch up with my eyes, and when it did, I felt something old and painful rise quietly in my chest. It was my brother. Before that night, my life had become very small. Not empty, just quiet. I lived alone in a modest house on a calm street where people slept early and waved politely in the mornings. My days followed a simple pattern. Wake up, make tea, sit by the window, go to work, come home, cook something light, sleep. Some people think routine means loneliness. For me, it meant safety. I was the older sister. I had always been the one who learned to adapt, the one who didn't ask too many questions when things didn't feel fair. My brother, Amir, was 5 years younger than me. Growing up, he had a way of filling every room with noise, laughter, complaints, dreams, excuses, sometimes all at once. Our parents used to say, "You're the calm one." And then they would turn to him and say, "You're the brave one." What they didn't see was how often bravery leaned on calmness, how often his risks were softened by my stability. I helped him with school. I defended him when teachers complained. I lent him money when he promised it was just temporary. I don't say this with pride. I say it with clarity. Because love, when unbalanced, slowly teaches one person to give and the other to expect. When our parents passed away within 2 years of each other, the house became quiet in a way that felt final. Not peaceful, final. We sat together after the funeral, surrounded by relatives who spoke in soft voices and avoided eye contact. That's when Amir started talking about moving forward. He wanted to sell the family. The weeks after that blended into each other. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I stopped expecting messages from Amir, not because I was strong, but because hope had become tiring. Every small decision felt heavier without someone to share it with. If the heater made noise, I wondered whether to fix it or wait. If my shoes wore out, I calculated how long I could delay replacing them. I learned how silence can sit beside you like another person, not speaking, just watching. Sometimes I caught myself setting an extra cup on the counter while making tea. Then I would notice it, feel embarrassed, and quietly put it back. At night, I lay awake listening to the sound of pipes and distant traffic. I replayed old memories, not the happy ones, but the unfinished ones. The times I had defended Amir, the times I had stayed quiet to keep peace. I asked myself if being calm had taught him that my pain didn't count. Friends tried to help in the way people do when they don't know what to say. They invited me out. They told me to stay busy. But busy does not heal what is unresolved. I avoided family gatherings, not because I feared questions, but because I didn't want to explain my silence. At the grocery store, I chose items slowly. I checked prices twice. I memorized what was on sale. These were not dramatic struggles. They were ordinary ones. And ordinary struggles, when faced alone, quietly change you. There were days I felt invisible, even to myself, like my life had become a waiting room with no appointment scheduled. One evening, while cleaning, I found an old box at the back of a cupboard. Inside were photographs. Faded edges, familiar faces. My parents, me and Amir as children. In one photo, I was holding his hand tightly while he laughed at something off camera. I remembered that day. He had been scared. I had promised him I wouldn't let go. Looking at that picture, I realized something painful. I had kept that promise longer than it was meant to last. Love should not require self-erasure. That night, I allowed myself to feel tired. Not weak, just tired. And there was relief in naming it. The letter arrived on an afternoon that felt like every other one. The sky was overcast, the air was still. It wasn't official looking, just a plain envelope with handwriting I recognized faintly. Inside was a short note from a man my parents had trusted years ago, a quiet, careful man who used to sit with my father at the dining table. He explained that my parents had set aside a small account. Nothing large, nothing dramatic, but it was meant for me. There was another folded paper inside, my mother's handwriting. She wrote that she trusted me to know when to use it, that strength didn't always mean sacrifice, that calm didn't mean endless giving. I read that note 3 times, and for the first time since the betrayal, I didn't feel smaller. I felt seen. I didn't rush to tell anyone. I didn't celebrate. I sat quietly at my table and let the truth settle. The money did not fix everything, but it changed how I stood in my own life. I paid overdue bills. I fixed the heater. I bought new shoes without guilt. More importantly, I stopped waiting for Amir to explain himself. I stopped imagining apologies. Because now I understood something clearly. Closure does not always arrive through others. Sometimes it arrives when you stop asking. I didn't call Amir. I didn't send messages. I didn't post anything on social media. Instead, I rebuilt quietly. I paid off small debts I had delayed for months. I moved furniture around in my apartment so it felt more like home. I bought fresh curtains, folded my laundry neatly, and lit candles in the evenings. Not for anyone else, just for me. Twice a week, I volunteered at the community kitchen, not for recognition, not for sympathy, but because it reminded me how people sound when their voices are gentle and kind. I learned to cook meals slowly. I learned to drink tea without looking at the clock. I learned to feel okay with silence that wasn't heavy, but peaceful. And somewhere deep in me, I made a decision. If Amir ever returned, I would not greet him with anger. I would greet him with truth, with calm, with boundaries. It happened just after midnight. The same porch light flickered softly. I was folding laundry when the knock came. Slow, careful, familiar. My heart stopped. I walked to the door and opened it. There he stood, older, thinner, his eyes red, his shoulders trembling, crying the way people cry when life finally humbles them. Not a child crying, not dramatic, just raw, quiet, human sorrow. I don't know where else to go," he whispered. "I lost everything." For a moment, I froze. All the old hurt rose like smoke in my chest. Then I reminded myself of the quiet strength I had built. I let him inside. Not because I forgave him yet, not because I forgot, but because I remembered who I was, and that dignity didn't require cruelty. We sat across from each other at the small table. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The silence was heavy, but calm. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," he said softly. I needed to come back." I nodded. "That's enough," I said. "No promises, no explanations, just respect." That night, he slept on the couch. I didn't hug him, I didn't scold him. We shared a quiet understanding. 8. Resolution and moral. In the morning, I made breakfast. I gave him directions to a shelter and community center where he could begin again. I didn't give him money. I gave him dignity. When he left, I stood on the porch for a long time. The air felt lighter. The sun was soft through the trees. Some people return not because they miss you. Some return because life finally introduces them to consequences. Forgiveness does not always mean reunion. Sometimes it simply means choosing peace for yourself without reopening old wounds. Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it is calm. And sometimes it is enough to sit with your own heart and know that you have chosen well. If this emotional story touched you, like, comment, and subscribe for more calm, real-life stories. Have you ever faced a moment where forgiveness had to include boundaries?